Alright folks, thanks for tuning in. Hope y'all are doing okay. So I want to tell you a kind of cool story that I just recently found out, and maybe a couple others. So all the recent Roe v. Wade discussion and the Supreme Court ruling has brought abortion to the forefront of the political and social discussion, which is fair. That said, a lot of the media narratives and the talk show narratives and whatnot are very biased toward pro-choice decisions in women that might be in slightly difficult predicaments concerning being pregnant and becoming a mother. Which, I don't argue that a lot of conceptions take place in less than ideal circumstances, and some far worse than others. That said, one of the things that I've noticed is you don't hear the stories about the women that got pregnant in less than great circumstances and overcame all them and became successful parents. Whether they were, geez, get on your own side of the road there, buddy. Whether they were single mothers or, just teenagers starting out and they had to scrimp and save every dime they could in order to take care of their baby and pay the bills. That kind of thing. So, a couple interesting stories. One of them, just found this out recently. A family member back in late 2020 got pregnant on my wife's side of the family. They live a little ways away from us and pretty excited about it, but not in the best circumstance due to employment and things like that. But, knuckled down and said, I'm going to do this. I want to be careful here. There ended up being some domestic issues in the house, not going into all that, but they ended up splitting up for a time being. Well, anyway, fast forward just a little bit, and she is right now, I think, a single parent who has stayed employed through the majority of pregnancy. I think she was self-employed for about half of her pregnancy. She was working up till the 8.5 month mark, and had the baby, and he's been around for a little while. Like I said, I don't want to give out a lot of information. And she's recently stepped back into the field that she had to walk away. She did have to walk away from a job field for a little while because of her, she was in auto body and collision repair, which you're exposed to a lot of gnarly chemicals and particulates when you're in auto body due to sanding, filling, painting, things like that. And she was a subcontractor, and her employer didn't want the liability if anything happened to the baby, so he kind of canceled her contract, said, you do great work, but I'm not taking this liability, which was cruel, but it was weird. It was like mean but fair all at the same time, in my opinion, and I completely understand why he did it. But now she's got back into that with a automotive franchises body shop, one of the big three, and she's just tickled beyond all measure to be back doing that. And she still has her business that she owns. She runs a detailing company. Also, I've worked with a number of pregnant women over the years. I worked with one that she got, when she hired in, turns out she was pregnant, but she didn't know it at the time. She worked all the way up till she went into labor. That was a funny story in and of itself, but she left work one day with the general manager, and he was driving her to the hospital, and she was in labor that day. due to her extenuating circumstances outside the job, she didn't have the money to afford raising a new baby, so she had already started the adoption process during pregnancy, and the baby was adopted pretty much right after birth, and she came back to work a few weeks later and was kind of a emotional train wreck over it, which can't say I blame her, but she was okay. And like I said, she worked from basically right after she became pregnant, didn't even know she was pregnant yet, up till she went into labor. And that's kind of when we parted ways as co-workers. Another woman that I worked with, her and her husband were trying to have kids, and lo and behold, they succeeded. And I worked with her up till she went out on maternity leave, and she came back and she was working. That's 2 or 3 women actually at the same place. I worked at a car dealership at the time. One of them got pregnant right after I was pregnant, either right before or right after I started, and I think she left in labor one day, and then another woman got pregnant well after I had started there, and she worked up till she went out on maternity leave, came back. Both of them were able to have the dignity and the privacy by the company and by law to privately pump breast milk to feed their baby, or to save back for their baby later, and both of them are still working quite happily. Let's see, another one I worked with, I literally worked across from this woman from on the line up at the vehicle assembly plant that I work at. From the day she got pregnant till the day she went out on maternity leave. She had to go out on maternity leave slightly early because she had some sort of a hernia associated with pregnancy. I don't know exactly the medical term. I know someone knows this right now and I'm butchering it, so sorry. But she had some sort of a hernia in her stomach, so she had to leave a little early on maternity leave, and she came back a couple weeks later because she had to have a surgery after she had healed up from labor and delivery. So, but she came back to work just fine. There's another woman that I work with. This is her 3rd pregnancy. I've worked with her as co-workers, I think through 2 of them. One time she was on a different shift. But anyway, she's been pregnant 3 times, worked up there. One time her water broke at work, and she just went out, went to the hospital. They had the baby successfully, and she came back to work. And this one right now, she's due in just a couple weeks, and they're probably going to end up inducing a little early since we're on shutdown right now. But she's call it 8.5 months pregnant. She was working as late as 2 days ago. So that's one thing that really bugs me, is that there's a lot of women that work the whole time they're pregnant up until either right before they're due or until labor starts, and no one talks about that, and it's kind of irritating. So I just wanted to share the handful of stories that I know firsthand where pregnant women have worked and been able to not only bring a baby into the world successfully, but to keep a job successfully or keep a career. And yes, it's physically draining to make a child and to go through labor. I can't imagine that. I've seen it, but I can't imagine that. But it's so rewarding as a parent to say that you did something worth doing. That's what I got on this one, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I will catch y'all next time. Have a good one.